Grief is tough as is, but grief plus a supernatural clown? Now that's an expensive therapy bill. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Kill the Credits. I'm Keelan, and today we're going to be talking about the Jester. Holy shit. The Jester. What's the Jester? Well, I'm glad that you asked. The Jester is a supernatural slasher horror film released back in 2023. It's written by both Michael Sheffield and Colin Krawchuk, and then directed by Colin Krawchuk. At least I think that's how you pronounce his last name. I'm honestly not entirely sure. It tells a story of two estranged sisters whose father passes away, and they are forced to come together for his funeral. Then the Jester shows up, f***s things up, and the story starts to unfold from there. That's my synopsis, by the way. That's not on Rotten Tomatoes or anywhere else on the internet because they're a lot better at writing things than I am. I actually watched this movie sometime late last year, but the reason that I'm doing a review for it now rather than then is they're actually releasing a sequel for it, and so I figured I would give it another watch, and then I'd give you guys my review in anticipation for the sequel coming out. I honestly didn't go into this movie with too high expectations, strictly for the fact that it was free to watch on Tubi. And for those who don't know, Tubi has a lot of B flicks on there that are absolutely terrible. I'm talking about you, Death Toilet. So the number one thing that stood out to me the most was the story. Oftentimes these lower budget horror films really focus most of their efforts on the gore and the kills, kind of just cover up for the fact that the story they're telling is really just not that interesting. So I was pleasantly surprised with the fact that the story in The Jester is actually very well written. They actually tell a pretty heart-wrenching story involving things such as child neglect, abuse, absentee fathers, guilt, trauma, resentment, and how all those things can sort of infect a person like a sickness. I really was not expecting a movie like this to have such a thought-provoking and deep premise, so that was pretty shocking to me. A couple other notable things are the practical effects and also the creative kills that they came up with. I don't want to say too much, but there were quite a few sequences where they were able to show off the Jester's abilities, I guess you could say, and the effects for those sequences were done really well. You can tell it's obviously practical, and to emphasize that, there's a character that is forced to spit up something that no human could possibly swallow down on their own just based on the size of this item.
Pause.
Yeah, I don't know. I enjoyed that. I thought it looked pretty rad, and it also just looks really fucking painful. So one thing I always notice in films that will either make or break a movie for me is the soundtrack and the soundscape. If the music or the
that you had,
y'all know what I'm talking about, the creepy tension building sounds or like the sound effects or just whatever, something that maybe the emphasis on the absence of sound as well, all of that could be used to create this world in the sound sense, you know. Now this part I saved for last because it's something that I'm kind of mixed on, and that is the Jester himself. The very first thing that I thought when I first saw the Jester was,
great, here's another Art the Clown copycat.
Well, I tried to do some research, I tried not to jump the gun, and come to find out that Colin and Michael have been releasing short films for the Jester since 2017. Now, given that the Terrifier feature film, the original, was released in 2016, and Art the Clown didn't really make his way into the mainstream until the release of Terrifier 2 in 2022, it's really hard to say whether or not they copied or even took inspiration from him. So I'm going to go ahead and not claim that. It's just really tough on them, especially as the creators, because of just the closeness and time into which both these characters were created. Even the fact that the character came from short films on YouTube, then progressed into a feature-length film, which was distributed by Dread Central, which for those of you who don't know, Dread Central also distributed the first Terrifier film. There's just so many similarities, and like, I just know that, you know, for a lot of people, they're not going to beat the allegations. People are just not going to accept even if it is the truth. And I'm not saying whether it is or isn't. I'm just saying people are going to be people. That's all I'm saying. It's unfortunate, especially because I do think while the Jester is not necessarily going to break into the mainstream the way that Art the Clown did, I do think the character has a very vibrant and appealing look to him, and he likes to cause mischief and amusing ways, and I think a lot of people can find some enjoyment out of that. So that's all I have for you on the Jester. Like I said before, the sequel is going to be coming out here soon. So if you want to check this movie out, I'll leave the link down in the description below. I'm also going to link the 3 short films that they did. They did 3 chapters. They're not canon, but it is interesting to go back and see kind of where they started from, what kind of ideas you can see them developing throughout these short films, and then kind of see where they took little bits and pieces of that and put it into the full-length feature. This has been Kill the Credits, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.